Warning, this content may be upsetting or disturbing to some audiences. Serious, hikers, campers, woodsmen and the like, what are your scariest experiences in their woods? My buddies and I were camping in the woods in Yosemite, California. We were the only ones in the area, and we knew this because of the camping registry. We were quite literally the only ones in a 20-mile radius. Anyways, everything was great and normal, and our campsite was on the side of a lake. At night, we all shared an 8-man tent. It was cozy with 8 guys in a tent, but not horrible. He poked his head out and began super frantically and nervously saying there's someone in our camp. He kept repeating it, and sounded absolutely terrified. Needless to say, we were effing horrified that someone might be in our camp, because we knew that we were supposed to be alone. After about 15 seconds of saying that someone was in our camp, he laid back down like nothing had happened, and slept. The mother effer was sleepwalking, and there was no one in the camp. It was hard to fall back asleep. I went for a hike at about 10 p.m. one night. As I was walking, I heard some people behind me a ways. I zoned in on their conversation and heard them talking about sneaking up on me to scare me. In that moment I became what was hiding in the darkness. Basically I hid behind a big tree and waited for them to catch up, jumped out and scared the crap out of what turned out to be a couple preteens who must have snuck out of the house that night. They ran away screaming and I went home to reevaluate my life choices. When I was about 13, my parents and I took a trip to Yellowstone National Park. While hiking a trail we heard a huge crash and a loud scream. "Watch out," were the words yelled out from someone not inside on the trail ahead. Hundreds of buffalo appeared crashing through the trees coming towards us. Executing our natural flight response to this dismal turn of events, we ran as fast as we could through the woods. I tripped at one point and will remember screaming out to my mother, who was already there to help me out. My father yelled to us to follow him as he started running up the hill on the other side of the path. 5 seconds later we saw the herd of buffalo passing us. Turns out if you are ever being chased by a herd of buffalo you should run uphill because the herd will naturally go downhill. We went to a diner right after that for lunch and I ordered a buffalo burger. Gave me a sense of victory. Went turkey hunting with my dad in the Shawnee National Forest several years ago. I was about 10. Took one afternoon to hike and scout hunting spots. Along the trail we saw a few blood splatters and drips, but not big deal, it's nature. We kept going a bit further as there was a bluff not too far up the way that was pretty cool to look at. Come to the bluff, find weird symbols burned into the ground and on the sides of the rock wall, candle wax absolutely everywhere and more blood all over the ground. The worst part is that we didn't leave the campsite, so the night I laid awake in the camper freaking out at every sound I heard. Still get goosebumps thinking about that event to this day. I was hiking the Appalachian Trail northbound in early August a few years ago and I was a day out of Davenport Gap heading to Hot Springs, North Carolina. I don't remember the exact shelter I was at, but I know it was north of Max Patch. That time of year, there aren't many people on the trail, and other than a couple cars at Max Patch, I hadn't seen or spoken to another person in a full day. I decided to end my hike for the day at about 7 p.m. so I could eat dinner and prepare for bed before dark. I ate, filmed, reloaded on my water, and hit the hay right as it got dark and the crickets came out. At about 2:30 a.m. I was startled awake, but not by a noise, rather the absolute silence around me. I didn't hear the toads, crickets, owls that you'd expect to hear and that I had heard when I had gone to sleep just 6 hours earlier. I looked around, but saw nothing. Everything was perfectly still. I packed all my gear in about 5 minutes, threw on my headlamp, grabbed my bear bag and noped my way up the trail. I'm pretty sure I averaged 4 miles per hour in the pitch black until sunrise. Because of such an early departure, I finished my planned 18 miles into Hot Springs by 10 a.m., which was nice. I've encountered tons of predators in the woods, from black bears to coyotes, but I've never experienced that calm like that before. Made me think maybe it was some sort of large cat, or worse, some crazy person. Who knows what would have happened had I stayed until sunrise. Bedded down for the night on my tarp, a few minutes later heard some rustling coming from my immediate left. Turned on my flashlight to see a bear's ass literally 2 feet from my nose, using one of its front paws and face to rifle through my pack. Bear scampers forward, trips on the pack, face plants into a fallen log. Looks back at me like it's my fault, then runs off. Then another time, An elk stepped on me while I was asleep. Hurt like a mother, fortunately didn't pierce my wrap canvas. I yelled in pain. Elk gave one of those whistle bugle cries and stomped off. That was scarier than the bear. If it had stomped on me, I'd have a minimum of a few broken ribs. At night at my fire, getting ready to cook up some food, this damn coyote, I think, was kinda dark, sneaks up, grabs my food bag and just runs off with it. I didn't see it until he had the satchel in his mouth, so I take off after it. As I stop to grab my food, I hear more coyotes from in front of me, close, and to the right. First one was still looking at me. Didn't sleep much that night. I haven't had anything too serious, but at a park here in Colorado I once saw a sign that said mountain lions are common here, but don't worry, you won't see them. That unnerved me a bit. Dude, stop that. It's always scary when you're sitting by the fire minding your own business and then your dog gets up and starts barking into the darkness. This will probably get buried, but 2 years ago, myself and 2 other people were camping in Yellow Bottom, which is in the Cascades of Oregon. About 3 a.m. I woke up hearing what sounded like a bunch of people having a campfire party. Nothing huge, not even scary, just talking, laughing, stuff like that. But I couldn't see fire or light through the tent walls, and since that was my big concern, fire in the woods, I just kind of ground my teeth about it and went back to sleep. About an hour later, I wake up again. This time somebody's let a little kid start crying, and it's really annoying. Like, not wailing but just sniffles, that long-term crying that kids do. You know, little kid crying all alone, where the hell are its parents, etc. I started to get up and my friend, who I though was sleeping, grabs my arm, just about giving me a heart attack, and says don't go out there. Just wait. He knows the woods better than me, and he sounded actually scared, so I sit and wait, and yeah, a few minutes later, the crying stops and the party starts back up. The party went on for about another hour, just until dawn, then all of a sudden, nothing. Like, cut off in the middle of a laugh silence. I was completely freaked out by then and I think I might have made a noise when it just stopped like that. I got up when the sun was finally completely up and made coffee and kind of looked around, but I'm not brave like that and didn't go far. But there was nothing, no campfire, not tents I could see through the trees, nothing. I don't know. Eats them, or something. So that's my creepy thing in the woods. I don't have any proof, but people who know the Pacific Northwest, it was way up Yellow Bottom, past the official camps, on the left-hand fork of the main road, down that logging road and right by the river. The campsite with the huge fallen over dead trees. Me, I've never been back up there. No sir. I'm not sure this counts since we were in a cabin and not camping, but on a trip up to the mountains when I was about 12, a bear totally walked into our cabin. As someone who is terrified of bears, that was really effing scary. I was hunting a big field for whitetail. It was public land and I decided not to set up a tree stand and just sit behind some heavy cover on the ground. I try to get to my spots well before sunup so I'm not making noise at first light, when many deer start to move. After I switched off my headlamp, it was quiet for about 30 seconds when suddenly I heard a howl from my right side. It was clear the howl came from the edge of the field I was in, roughly 200 yards away. It sent shivers down my spine. At this point I'm pretty freaked out, but I figure it's highly unlikely anything would attack me. Not much longer and from directly behind me, somewhere in the thick of the woods, a third howl. I now feel surrounded, and I'm terrified. I flicked on my headlamp, took the safety off my gun, equipped my hunting knife and got the FCK out as fast as I could. I waited until the sun came up before I went back and actually hunted. I never saw a deer that entire weekend. I presume whatever was howling drove the deer out, and I don't blame the deer one bit. The entire experience was very scary, and I've done a lot of hunting, camping, etc. When I was 21 I took a trip to California with my best friend. One of the days we decided to spend at Muir Woods. When we went in, the lady at the front desk asked us if we wanted to also buy a map while we paid our entrance fee. Also, we didn't bring food or water because we only wanted to hike for 2 to 3 hours. So of course we get lost. And I mean really lost. Anyways, we are starting to panic because we were very thirsty and hungry. I remember peeing and it being neon yellow because I was so dehydrated, and the sun was starting to set. We were discussing spending the night in these woods and what we would do about eating/drinking/exposure. It was crazy to get back to the once packed parking lot and see our car be the only one. I'm sure people will have more extreme stories, but this was really scary for me and my friend. I once accidentally peed on a coiled-up diamondback rattlesnake while hiking in New Mexico. Week-long outdoor survival training, friend of mine got a stick impaled in his right eye. I was chilling out on a day hike in the woods, cloudy day. The sun was setting and it was getting dark and cooling off quickly, time to head back to the car. I just set off when it got dark real fast, sun was set, no moon, no stars. Basically pitch black. No matches or lighter, either. So there I am in thick woods, highly variegated terrain, only a general idea of the direction of my car, no path, and no light. It was too cold to spend the night, so I had to try to make it back. It probably doesn't sound too scary to read about it, but I was pretty freaked out, alone, pitch black, coyotes howling. The wife and I have had a few scary experiences. We unknowingly interposed ourselves between a baby wild boar and its mother. This pissed the boar off. We each stood our ground on the trail for a mega tense half an hour before she backed off. I almost stepped on a baby rattlesnake. It was too young for its rattler to rattle. A funny one in Costa Rica, a group of howler monkeys triangulated our location via their howls. We didn't know what they were, couldn't see them, and if you know what those F-seekers sound like, you'll know why we were so scared and why the guy back at the park center lost his SHT laughing at us. Camping in general can be freaky. Not so much during the day, but when it gets dark. It gets dark. Whenever people say the Blair Witch Project wasn't scary, I always ask them if they've ever been camping. If you have, then that movie probably freaks you the FCK out. Laying in your tent at night not knowing what is 3 feet away from you is terrifying. It's pitch black and quiet. Like being alone in a creaky old house except with a X10 multiplier. Every sound could be a bear, wolf, or person out to get you, and if you're in a tent you can't see what's out there. Probably my freakiest experience happened when I was a kid and went camping in Colorado. It was dark but still too early for us to be tired, so we were just sitting around the fire doing the do. Talking, eating s'mores, whatever. Now keep in mind how dark it is out there. The light from the fire only goes out so far and it creates like this wall where all light stops. We were sitting there when all of a sudden my sister looked up and saw a pair of eyes looking at us. Me and my sister started freaking out. We were like right on the edge of lose our minds scared. Our parents calmed us down and told us not to move. We had no idea what it was nearly impossible to judge how big it was. So we just sat there and waited for it to go away, which it did. Not too interesting of a story, but definitely freaked us out. My dad admits to this day he wasn't scared, but notoriously has never been able to handle scary movies on any level. I call bullshit, Dad, you were scared. If you made it to the end of the video, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe and share, and we will see you in the next video.